We've asked our speakers today to join us to provide insight on the industry. The topics discussed are an overview of options for you to think about to help you with your independent research and business decisions, so aren't intended as recommendations or advice. Remember as well that your business has its own individual circumstances. The statements and views expressed may not be applicable or suitable for your business.
Like you'll ever get paid to play video games, they said. You've gone on to become players, creators, fans, all in one huge and growing community. Video games bring us closer, even when we're apart, and Barclays has seen this. We've been partnering with the likes of Yuki, Women in Games, Tiger, and Game Republic. We know that gaming's many faces can truly make a positive impact. We're there with you, whether you're making the next great game or just looking forward to playing it. Squad up, we're Barclays.
Hi, I'm Elaine Moran. I'm the head of Games and Esports Strategy at Barclays. Welcome to the Games Global Frenzy Series Day 3 of our 5-day event. Yesterday we focused on the US, today we'll be focusing on the Southeast Asia, then tomorrow Israel, and then finally India on Friday. It's been a fantastic few days so far, and today really puts the icing on the cake with some fantastic speakers. We're delighted to be speaking to Razer about their ecosystem and diversifying innovation in games. We also have a great piece with Play Ventures, Potato Play, and Yuki discussing exporting games from Asia. We're also delighted to have showcases from Mighty Bear, Potato Play, and the Digital Foundry. And a little later on, we have an esports tournament with our partners, the National Students Esports. If you'd like to view this, we'll be streaming live on Twitch at 9 p.m. Hong Kong time, 1 p.m. UK time. And you can view that on twitch.tv/NSE_GG. Thanks for joining us, and I hope you enjoyed today's event.
Hello everyone, and welcome to Barclays Games Frenzy Spotlight on Southeast Asia. My name is Bruno Amaro, and I am the Fintech Coverage Director for Southeast Asia at Barclays. Today we have a very special guest with us. With a fan base that spans every continent, their motto is quite simple: for gamers, by gamers. Razer is the world's leading lifestyle brand for gamers, with award-winning hardware that includes high-performance gaming peripherals and Blade gaming laptops. Razer's software platform, with over 100 million users, includes Razer Synapse, an Internet of Things platform, Razer Chroma RGB, proprietary RGB lighting technology system, and Razer Cortex, a game optimizer and launcher. In services, Razer Gold is one of the world's largest virtual credit services for gamers, and Razer Fintech is one of the largest offline to online digital payment networks in Southeast Asia. Today with us we have Zuber Mohammed, Chief Marketing Officer for Razer Inc. Zuber heads Razer's global marketing and partnership efforts across multiple business units of hardware, peripherals and systems, software and platforms, retail and e-commerce, esports and fintech. Busy man. He is responsible for profitable business and user growth across Americas, EMEA and APAC via integrated marketing efforts, community development, PR and comms, online and offline retail experiences, business partnerships and developer relations. Zuber has a business marketing and product leader across industries and continents for almost 2 decades. Prior to Razer, he was the group marketing lead for APAC platforms. and the head of YouTube marketing for global emerging markets at Google. Before that, he was an engagement manager with McKinsey in New York City as a part of their marketing practice, and the product manager and marketeer with Procter & Gamble in Japan. Zuber has an MBA with honors from Harvard Business School and a bachelor's in technology from the prestigious Indian Institute of Technology. Zuber, very warm welcome and thank you for joining us today.
Thank you so much, Bruno. Thanks for inviting me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Razer is a phenomenal name, and we are first and foremost fans, not only users, but fans. Innovation has been a key driver for growth since day one. And I would love to hear your thoughts on how innovation has been at the core of Razer's strategy and how you really focus on building a community of fans.
Sure. Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. I think, for us, anything that we do, and you spoke about the different businesses that we play in, it's always about innovation that's at the core. And within that, we look at product development, right? That's the center of our business and the work we do. We have a long history of kind of creating products that enable gamers to play games, not just play games, but actually excel at games, engage and connect with each other, and really kind of identify and live the gamer lifestyle. And so the bar we always set for ourselves is how can our products always give every gamer the unfair advantage, right? And that's how we look at innovation and product development. Just as an example, like if a keyboard switch or a mouse button, it should last for 100 million clicks in its lifetime. We push the envelope and like, how can we get that to 120 million, 150 million clicks? Even when we created our latest hyperspeed wireless technology products, it was always like, how can it be zero latency so there's absolutely no compromise on gameplay? And that's how we look at innovation, right? We set the bar at pro level athletes that can use it for esports, and that ensures that it'll work for the broader gamer community. Yeah. But the other thing that also fuels our innovation, which was a part of the question you asked, which is our community, right, of fans, of gamers, of esports athletes, and we strongly believe in keeping this community at the heart of everything we do. And so for us, it's about knowing our target audience, knowing this gamer, knowing the fan base, and actually being that fan base as well. We are a company of gamers. And so everything that we create is then aligned with the needs and the requests of this community. And we believe in having a two-way dialogue. So through our social network channels and other media, we ensure that it's not a one-way monologue, but we engage with our community and our fans. We get feedback from them about our products. And that's how we build and improve and keep, lifting the bar for everything we do.
Look, it's clear that from the onset, you had a very differentiating proposition because it's clear that you use your products for gaming. So you understood really well what the needs were. And you've created an ecosystem of products and services that not only make your users consumers, but true fans. And we see this on the loyalty for the brand. Now, if you look at your entire business, you have a diverse model. You have hardware, you have software, you have financial services, and that is helping you build a virtuous circle, right? Providing always value to your users. So I would like to hear your thoughts on how creating a vibrant ecosystem has been center as you grow and scale your multiple businesses.
Sure. So, like you mentioned, we are one of the world's leading lifestyle brand for gamers. And for us, what that means is we don't want to serve only the core gaming needs of our users, right? Of course, that is key and critical, but we want to help kind of provide the needs, the values that they want, the value that they want and they're looking for the entire ecosystem and lifestyle that they lead. And so that's why, when we look at our businesses, we have hardware, we have software, and we have services. Let me give you a bit of flavor of how all of this comes together. So on the hardware side, of course, we do what has been the core of our business for a while now, which is our peripherals and accessories for gameplay, no matter what your platform, right? PC, mobile, console, doesn't matter. We have products for all of those. And then we also have our Razer Blade laptops, so that no matter what platform, what game you're playing, you have the right products that you need, whether it's a keyboard, a mouse, a headset, or what have you, to really elevate your gameplay. But then we didn't stop there. We also grew our software business, and today we have more than 100 million users across our software products. And some of them are Razer Synapse, which is like our Internet of Things, which is a unified platform where you can manage, control, and set up the features for all hardware that you're using. And not just Razer hardware, but we have third-party partnerships as well. We also have our Cortex suite of apps, both for PC and mobile, which is like a game optimizing game discovery app and a rewards program as well in it. And then we also have Chroma, which is our proprietary lighting system. So we look at all of this to kind of extend the experience of our gamers beyond just the use of hardware, but to the way they engage with their hardware as well and control it and enjoy the experience. One example I can give you of how these come together is we recently had Razer Con, which is our first ever fully digital, fully online conference for an entire day a couple of weeks ago. And we executed the world's first stream reactive lighting setup, which means that if you tuned into Razer Con on Twitch and you were using Chroma or Razer hardware, it would automatically react to what's happening on the screen. So if there was music, it was reacting as per the audio, or those kind of things. So that's how we kind of bring these ecosystems together. And lastly, on services, it's that next extension of a gamer's lifestyle, right? So you mentioned this earlier. So we have one of the world's largest virtual currencies for gamers called Razer Gold. And then we have Razer Silver, which is the supporting loyalty kind of rewards program with it. And what Gold enables users, it's pretty ubiquitous. We have Gold can be used as a form of payment across more than 34,000 games. There are 4 million offline touch points, and of course, all the online touch points where you can load your Gold wallet and use it in games. So what we've done is with that, we're basically looking at not just enabling gamers to pay during gaming within the gaming ecosystem, but also outside. So they can use this as digital payments for online entertainment and other daily needs and necessities. And that's where our second services business, Razer Fintech, comes in, where we mainly target our kind of unbanked and underbanked users. And we enable them to access digital content by, cash over the counter top-ups and our Razer Pay e-wallet and so on, so that no matter what their lifestyle or how they what access they have to payment methods, the world of gaming, the world of entertainment, is not kind of closed off for them. So that's why we've created actually the world's largest integrated ecosystem for gamers to serve every need and lifestyle of our target user.
Look, and it works fantastically. I'm a huge fan, not only user, but fan of Razer products. And the Chroma experience is phenomenal. And that for me, I love that because it shows that you are absolutely center focused on how a gamer, that small advantage of knowing that someone is coming from your left to shoot you in Fortnite or something like that, that microsecond makes all the difference. For real
It's
gamers.
between winning, life and death, I guess, in the game.
Exactly. And what I love is you take us on a journey, right? And when you go on a lifestyle brand, you get into the games, but not only that, you have your coin, which you can use for a number of things. And throughout the ecosystem and the gamer's lifestyle, you found innovative ways to be there. And if I look at how you are also participating in that ecosystem, it's interesting that you also have a ventures business that is also perhaps tapped to support it. Can you give us some color on that?
Sure. No, that's a great question. So we do have Z Ventures. Z Ventures is our corporate ventures arm, and it's an integral component of all the strategic investment activities that we do. And the idea with Z Ventures is we focus on companies or startups that either have or can have or will have a role to play within our larger ecosystems, everything kind of we just spoke about. And given our large user base that's global, our years of experience in designing, building, manufacturing, selling, distributing top of the line hardware and software products, we have a global distribution network. We are integrated into the gaming community with influencers and so on. So we believe that we can bring tangible value to the table for these kind of startups. And so there are a few areas, the areas and types of companies that Z Ventures tends to look at span a broad spectrum, I would say, like stuff like obviously within gaming software technology, we look at VR, AR, augmented reality, esports, but we also look at more broadly the Internet of Things, analytics and software that can help enhance a user's experience as well. On the manufacturing side, advanced manufacturing and engineering capabilities, robotics, and then of course fintech, as we're looking to grow. Razer Fintech, for example, as I was mentioning, Although we've started with a regional play in Southeast Asia, we recently announced a global partnership with Visa, where now you can use Razer Pay to pay across close to 60 million merchants with Visa. So we're looking at ways in which that whole fintech ecosystem can also grow. And I think so. Capital is one area, but the other thing we believe we can add value with Z Ventures is kind of giving these companies that we look at or work with access, right, to our network of customers, of investors, of suppliers, OEMs. They can meet other stakeholders in the industry that we have relationships with, our partners, influencers, and so on. So that's why it's like the investment is just the first step. It's about how do we help them become an integrated part of the ecosystem and grow together with us.
Yeah, it's an enabler, right? It's an enabler to help them scale their proposition and participate in your ecosystem also. You mentioned that's something that's super interesting, which is the overall esports sector and movement, right? And this is something that started quite small, and now we're seeing it mainstream. We're seeing leagues coming up, and obviously everywhere you look within esports, Razer is that, right? It's the hardware of preference for most of the professional gamers, and it's a brand that you have, it's an area that you have invested significantly. So I'd like to get your thoughts around your esports strategy and what you're looking to do there.
Sure. Yeah, no, you're right. I think esports, obviously, everything happening this year with COVID has helped, but even before that, like esports has been on its path to becoming mainstream for a while now, and it's really been exploding recently. So the way we look at the esports ecosystem is in a few ways, right? Because it's with something that's grown so fast, there tends to be sometimes, I'm not saying across the board, but in certain areas and pockets, there might be a lack of structure because things have just, moved so fast. And that's why we are trying to add value to like bridge some gaps. So one example of that is, so if you look at the top echelons of esports, where the top athletes and pro tournaments. So yes, we are a part of that, kind of like you mentioned, with our products being used, but also we partner with some of the top esports athletes around the world, and we call that Team Razer. But that's just kind of the top layer. What we've realized as we've been a part of this ecosystem in esports is there's kind of like a lack of a bridge or a path to get there, right? It's great to be a pro athlete, but for most other gamers who aspire to be there, like what's the path to get there? And that's one gap we are trying to fill. And for that, we launched a tournament recently, a series of tournaments called Razer Invitationals. And the idea of Razer Invitational tournaments is to rally the kind of athletes at the grassroots levels. So we work with esports federations across countries, and we get them to pick the top kind of players of various popular games in the region, and then reach finals within their countries, and then compete in an international stage, representing their country. So they have the following of the fans from their country, and the idea is to give them a new platform, a global stage, a global platform to show their skills, to learn, to grow, and create that path to get to pro. And the most recent one that we did was Razer Invitational in Southeast Asia, actually, a couple of months ago, and it did really well. And so actually, maybe I'll just show you one video here that just will give you a flavor of that tournament. The 2019 Southeast Asia Games were a truly historic moment. But we keep asking ourselves, what next? How can we keep growing esports around the region and around the world? What is the right platform that we can give gamers so that they can step up to the next level? And that's how we came up with the Southeast Asia Invitational.
He was Tumba Beacon.
Oh, Javi, there you have it. He said,
There you go, there's another.
So you see, we got some really good engagement, right? Like we had 10 nations across Southeast Asia participating, 500 teams, 3,500 athletes. Like, to be honest, it surprised us. We did not expect such an overwhelming response, both in participation as well as viewership, right? We crossed 10 million views for a fully online digital tournament, of course, because of COVID reasons. So that was really good to see that this ecosystem, even despite everything going on, like this works. And the third thing I'll say on the esports ecosystem that we want to make a difference is start getting esports recognized as an official medal sport in like big sporting events around the world. Obviously, the epitome is the Olympics, and so our goal is to get esports become a medal sport in the Olympics. And so, that's an aspirational goal. We're starting to take steps to get there. We've had a couple of successes already. Last year, we managed to get esports as an official sport in the Southeast Asia Games in the Philippines, and that went down really well. And we just actually, a couple of weeks ago, it was announced, again, we worked with the federations, we worked with the organizing committee, and we also achieved getting esports officially included in SEA Games next year in Vietnam. So that's 2 steps forward towards our vision of getting into the Olympics.
Wow, fantastic! I'm sure it will happen. But these are material sports, right? And you're talking about Southeast Asia, and I'd like to get your perspective here, right? Because Southeast Asia, it's a very diverse region. We're talking about 600 million people, 12 countries, different languages, different cultures, different currencies. But if there's something that brings people together, it's gaming, because it's cross-cultural, right? How are you seeing the sector evolving in the region? And we can expand that to Asia, which includes obviously China. We can't take it out of the equation. How do you see that evolving?
It's evolving really fast, right? And I think there are few, I guess, macro ecosystem developments and technology, especially that are fueling it, right? So I'll talk about a few of them. Especially in the region that, like you mentioned, because if in many ways Southeast Asia, especially South and Southeast Asia, I would say is a generation of people that have just kind of skipped into the mobile generation, right? They're straight from landline phones to mobile. Like most of them don't have desktops and so on. So that's been a huge development that we've seen, right? The growth of mobile, and as device specifications improve, as network quality improves, 3G, then 4G, and now 5G is starting to come out. And cloud gaming, I'll talk about cloud gaming as well. But just the growth in mobile usage has led, as you can imagine, to increase in mobile gaming. And we're seeing a real uplift in the types, not just the number of people who game and the types of games they play on mobile. So it's not just casual Candy Crush style games anymore, but they're playing kind of more involved games like PUBG Mobile, Arena of Valor, Clash of Clans, so on. And it's also evolving into the esports arenas, where these mobile games are now becoming more and more common as tournaments around. And in fact, even we had a couple of mobile games in our own invitational tournaments, Mobile Legends Bang Bang as well. So that's one big move we are seeing, this whole growth in mobile, not just consumption, but first gameplay and then consumption. And that's fueled by better networks, cloud gaming. So suddenly when your network has become better and you have cloud options, like Amazon launched Luna recently, of course, there's Stadia and others. Now you've become platform agnostic as well. So you don't have to have a console or a PC to engage. You can be on your mobile phone and be on the move, and you can still consume content. And that's what we're seeing in terms of consumption of gaming content as well, because of 5G and cloud gaming. And we want to play a part in that evolution. So earlier this year, we announced it at CES and won awards. And then earlier this year, we launched Razer Kishi, which is our console-grade controller for mobile. It's amazing. Like, you just attach it and then it feels like you're playing on a console when you're actually playing on mobile. And we have an xCloud, like a cloud version for that as well. So again, seamless gameplay across platforms. So these are the kind of evolutions we're seeing. And this is being fueled by audiences coming online. Of course, this year COVID had a role to play. But, like I was saying, we were surprised at how well our online tournament has done. This is a global number, but if you look at reports out there, like esports audiences, not just gameplay, but people watching esports is growing by double-digit percentages year on year. So it's this whole player ecosystem, the equipment and the tech infrastructure, as well as viewership, right? All 3 elements of the entire ecosystem is just exploding in the region and around the world.
Yeah, and they're converging at the right time with an added incentive, which is COVID, which is why we're seeing absolute explosion in terms of consumption from the media, but also players coming in. And maybe speaking about esports athletes. Right? That's and your invitational is quite interesting because you touch on a very relevant point, which is supporting players and athletes on a grassroots level. They are just starting their journey, right? And this was maybe 5-10 years ago was not a clear path for an athlete to develop a career, right?
Exactly.
How are you seeing that journey from a player perspective, and how is that profession being looked at externally? And maybe to take it a step further, how do you support that journey from players with initiatives like you just mentioned, Invitational, but also to drive inclusiveness and diversity in the sport?
Sure. Yeah, no, I think it's some of the elements I'd mentioned. Overall, for us, it's also making that connection. So I spoke about Invitational giving a global platform, right, for grassroots players or emerging players to practice, to show their skills, pit themselves among some of the other great players, not just in their country and in the region. But the other thing we do to be kind of more supportive is make connections where, like I was mentioning, we have Team Razer, which are our top esports athletes that we partner with. A lot of them, Evil Geniuses is one example, right? One of the top esports teams in the world. They've been our partner for a while now. And last year in the SEA Games, this year in Razer Invitational, we got them to, well, last year they could fly down. This year was online, where they engaged with some of the finalists to really kind of help them, train them, give them tips and tricks and stuff like that, right? So we bring that aspirational goal much closer to these budding athletes. So that's one. I think, like I mentioned, getting esports into the Olympic Games eventually, but every major sporting event along the way, right? SEA Games first, maybe Commonwealth, maybe otherwise, other regions as well. I think that will also do a lot for making it more inclusive and more diverse. I think, we're also looking at ways, I don't think we're there yet, but we're looking at other ways for inclusion and diversity. One example is more women pro athletes and esports players. And we know, especially in the region, right, Asia, Southeast Asia, we are seeing an increase in more women starting to be a part of the esports ecosystem, and we want to help grow that. So I think still work to be done there, but that's something we're keenly thinking about as well.
Look, that's very exciting. It's a very exciting sector. It's a very exciting journey, and I think we're getting towards the end of our session here. And I would just like to thank you once again, Zuber, for your time, for joining us today. It's a privilege of us to hear from you about Razer's growth story, plans, and presence in the esports section.
Well, thank you for having me here.
Hi, so thanks for stopping by. I'm Simon Davis. I'm the CEO at Mighty Bear Games, and today I'm going to tell you a bit about who we are and what it is we do. So a bit about who we are. So Mighty Bear Games was founded in 2017, and the first batch of employees actually all worked together at King. So King, as you're probably aware, is the company that makes Candy Crush. King had a studio here in Singapore called Nonstop Games, and unfortunately Nonstop one day, stopped. And as a result of that, we were kind of left together and started our own studio here in Singapore. So today we're around the 30-person mark, and we're currently expanding quite aggressively. So the plan is to be about 50 people sometime by the end of next year. And as a studio, our focus is entirely on accessible multiplayer games. So by accessible, we mean games which can be played by players of any kind of background, be it in terms of age or expertise level or even demography. So we create games with a very kind of global mass market appeal. So a bit about who we are. So as you can see from the photo, which is quite an old one, we're a bit bigger now, but it's a very diverse team with people from all over the world who've worked at some of the biggest names in gaming, so the likes of EA, Activision, Ubisoft, as well as some kind of local studios to Asia and some of the biggest IPs in the world. So things like Harry Potter and Star Wars, for example. So just very quickly, here's a little bit about how we build games. So we know that today in mobile, just like on desktop and PC, MOBA and Royale games dominate the kind of multiplayer charts. They're the biggest genres out there. But on mobile especially, these are kind of targeted very much at 15 to 30-year-old males. So there's a heavy emphasis on hyper-sexualized content in terms of the female characters and their look, quite a lot of violence. It's very testosterone fueled. It can be quite off-putting to anyone that's kind of not within that kind of bracket. And then again, because these games have their roots in console and PC, often the user experience is quite compromised from a design perspective, especially for a kind of more mobile player or someone who's trying to play on a small touch screen. As you can see from that screenshot, there's many kind of buttons and whatnot. So yeah, the state of mobile multiplayer today is typically games which are designed for kind of more hardcore audiences and with ports of PC experiences. So we have our own creative formula with how we tackle this. So we begin by having kind of games with an accessible theme. So in the case of Battle Royale, we kind of took food, which is, you know, very global. It's enjoyed by people all over the world and it's relatable. And we basically wrapped the Battle Royale genre as a huge food fight. We designed a game with a deep social system, which is better with friends, because games are always more fun if you play them with people who you like. And we try and combine these elements to create kind of genre-defining content and concepts. We have 3 core design pillars we use when we design these games. So the first one is accessibility, so it should be playable by anyone really. The most hardcore player will be able to play the game in a different way to a more casual player, but both should be able to pick up and have a fun time with a game. We think that the social layer is really key, especially from a retention perspective. And all games need to have a kind of competitive undercurrent to them as well, just to keep them entertaining over the long term and keep them interesting. And we always validate games early. So every game we build has to be shippable within 6 months. At that point, we will assess and test the game in kind of a live environment, make sure it really works and that it's kind of scalable from a user acquisition perspective, and only then do we launch. But unlike a lot of studios, so we don't spend 2, 3, 4 years making a game before we test it. We test within 6 months, and we make sure the economics make sense actually very early on. So yeah, our most recent game is Battle Royale, as I previously mentioned. It's been doing very well for us. It's currently on Apple Arcade, and it's had a great reception. So you can see like The Guardian featured it in Games to Play during lockdown. Los Angeles Times loved it. And the reviews from the players has been fantastic. Depending where you're playing, it's averaging something like a 4.8 or a 4.9 out of 5 on the App Store, which is a pretty impressive rating. And now I'm just going to play a little trailer from Battle Royale and hope to see you guys on the Butterfield before long. Thanks for watching that. If there's anything you want to reach out and get in touch with us, then please feel free to contact me on the email address below. All right, thanks. Bye-bye.
So hello and welcome one and all to this fireside chat looking at exporting to and from the Asian games market. This event is part of the Barclays Games Frenzy series of events, and we're indebted to Barclays for organising such an interesting and diverse series of events on the global games market. I'm your host today, Sam Collins. I'm head of commercial for UKI, the UK Games Trade Body. We're a not-for-profit focusing on helping games companies survive and thrive in a global digital marketplace. This includes running an award-winning international trade programme that helps UK small and medium-sized businesses secure export wins of over £100 million a year for the past 5 years. And we also have encouraged hundreds of millions of pounds of foreign direct investment into the UK in the same period. I'm joined today by 2 wonderful guests. I'm going to get them to introduce themselves quickly. Start with Felicia. Just let me know a little bit about your background and who you represent.
Sure. So my name's Felicia. I'm a aspiring gamer who wishes I was better, but an investor most of the time at Play Ventures. We're an early stage VC fund that focus specifically on gaming and in particular free-to-play game developers as well as gaming services. And we invest globally in Southeast Asia and Europe and all across the globe, really. So that's about it. Yeah.
That's marvelous. And Vincent, over to you.
Hi everyone, I'm Vincent from Potato Play. I'm CEO of Potato Play, and we at Potato Play, what we do is we bring games developed in Asia to global markets as a mobile games publisher.
Wonderful. Thank you very much for that. Nice, short and sweet intro. So that's good. We'll try and tease out a little bit more about your companies as we go through this. Starting with you, Felicia, just I'm interested in you're a VC based in Asia. I'm assuming you've got your finger on the pulse of the market. What are the latest trends that you're seeing in those markets? And actually, when we talk about Asia, if there are any differences you want to explore between the likes of sort of China, India, Southeast Asia, but really what's going on in the market? What's the latest trends at the moment?
Yeah, so Asia is definitely a market that we find greatly interesting. I mean, it's massive, right? You've got over 1 billion gamers, and then tons of game development talents as well, all across the region. I think what we're seeing more recently is driven by general awareness of Asia, both as a development hub with a cost and runway advantage, as well as a market of players that are driving great revenue for several types of games. So what we're seeing in terms of companies, we're seeing a lot of these startups kind of take advantage of that runway by doing split operations. So they might not be 100% based in Asia. They might have operations, let's say, in the US, and then also have a separate development team in India or in Vietnam, where you have these large pools of affordable development talent. And the second thing that I think we're also seeing is a growing confidence in game developers and their ability to make games that have this global appeal. So that's where they might work with somebody like Potato Play to publish their games to a Western market. But we're, or it might be somebody like Genshin Impact, for example, is a great example of a game that has massive appeal. It's the biggest launch by a Chinese title, I think, to date, right? The second thing that we're seeing is also, I think, Asian developers looking at that domestic opportunity in itself as being very attractive, and they're using the fact that they're the ones who knows the local player better than anybody else. So they're looking at those opportunities where you have in India and Vietnam about 3/4 of the population under the age of 35. That's tremendously young, and they're maturing. They're going to be spending more. So I think they're looking at those domestic markets and thinking why compete globally in a very crowded market? I've got this huge pool of players here, and nobody knows them better than we do. So those are kind of some of the interesting things that we're seeing.
That's really interesting, particularly on the improved quality of games coming out of the Asian market and their appeal globally. I've certainly seen that myself. Vincent, from your perspective as a publisher, what trends are you seeing in the market at the moment over in Asia?
Right. So there used to be I would say a stereotypical thinking that Western games has a certain style and Eastern games have a certain style, and I used to believe in it as well. But in recent years, we see this convergence of game designs, mixing the wide appeal and the accessibility of the Western games with the depth and the monetization of the Eastern games. I mean, you could call it evil, you call it monetization, but it's actually really clever techniques that are intertransferable to other games itself. And by merging these two, you find lots of games from Asia starts to get success globally, including in the West and in Asia itself. So we kind of see people starting to crack this universal game code, and Felicia mentioned Genshin Impact, and the other games such as the Lords Mobile and Rise of Kingdoms, that AFK Arena that does the job very well. So in terms of quality of games, we see it really improving with games merging these two together.
That's interesting, and we see that trend. You're absolutely right. More and more content coming over to the West from China, and we're pleasantly surprised how high quality the games are. Particularly when we started looking at the Western market, started looking at the Asian market probably 7 or 8 years ago, and there seemed to be an opportunity to get high quality European games into the Asian market. partly because there was a need to increase the standard of games, and that's a good way of growing market share. I mean, very interested in your thoughts on, just to pursue this point about Asian games actually coming to the Western market. So Vincent, coming back to you. So if Asian businesses have decided to publish their games outside of Asia, what are the key considerations and what are the challenges for getting that game sort of ready to be released in a Western market? It's a very broad question, so I apologize for that, but maybe take us through a couple of things on that.
Yeah, I think it's a good question. So firstly, I think Eastern developers, or in particular China developers, should regard at the world as many different countries and not like China and the world. So this is the basic difference, because they're so used to having like serving one market, or like even Asian developers tend to look at one kind of game and treat the world as one. So firstly, you have to acknowledge that there's different countries, different cultures, and even different languages in the West. And it's not all about the US, but obviously it's also quite a lot about the US. So other than that, they have to understand like what they have to improve on and what's their strengths actually. So we see kind of developers who actually think that some of their weaknesses are their strengths, and the other way around. So they tend to expand a lot on like depth and a lot of the hardcore stuff, which actually alienates players from the West. And they drop a lot on monetization, thinking that pay to win is bad and it's not recognized in the West, and they drop that out. Whereas like if we were to help developers, we would reduce the hardcore stuff, make it seem like it's a friendlier game than it is, rather than having like 10 icons with shiny effects all around. Reduce it to like an icon, a no-brainer. You just start to go in the game and then unlock the details start to unlock when you play. And then once you're into the game, use kind of monetization techniques that are not so pay to win, or rather like package better, and then like make the game a success through both in terms of like gameplay and also through monetization, so that we have a game that people like to play and enjoy paying for it. So like they have to understand like what are the strengths and what are the weaknesses, and expand on the strengths.
It's certainly fascinating, the difference between the approach to monetization. Here we are in the West with admiration seeing how Chinese games companies in particular have been able to monetize content. And we don't really have those skills necessarily in the UK at the moment, but we're learning. And at the same time, you're perhaps trying different techniques to get your games into the West. So it's a beautiful moment where we're crossing over with different skills and technologies. I'm quite interested in the sort of the localization aspect. So in order to, I'm coming back to you again, Vincent. I will come to you in a second, Felicia. Sorry about that. But in terms of the localization, it must be an enormous challenge looking at all of, particularly when you're looking at the European market, all of the different languages. Are there good localization studios in Asia, or do you tend to outsource it to overseas?
It really depends on what language it is in, because if we source our games from Asia, then we need a localization studio that can handle both languages well. But usually we have like pretty good studios in the East, where they provide translators either in the native language and understands like the Asian language like Chinese or wherever the game is from. So we tend to prefer this kind of localization, because instead of just like giving a Google Translate, it gives like context and we have worked with some localization companies where they actually give a language a certain life. Like it's a totally different translation, but it makes more sense with the country's context.
That's wonderful. Thank you for that. Felicia, we've heard about the challenges of moving into different markets. So here you are as a VC and investor, and you've invested in numerous businesses outside of Asia. But how do you evaluate those companies? How do you decide which companies to invest in? Is there some sort of criteria that you look at for investing in companies outside of Asia? And how difficult is it? Let's start with the difficulty.
Well, I mean, I think first, to give, I guess, a little bit of context, we are based in Singapore as well as in Helsinki. And from the start, we've been investing globally. And I think, the realization is that many people are coming to is that great teams, great founders can really come from anywhere, right? It's not just purely a thing that you can find in the US or in Europe. They're really everywhere. So that's why we invest globally. And taking that into mind, the core principles remain the same. We invest at such an early stage, what people commonly call pre-seed seed stage. That's really pre-product, pre-revenue. A lot of times the company doesn't actually exist yet. It hasn't been registered. There's no bank account. So in which case we're really looking at, I would say, three things. The opportunity, is it interesting? Potato Play is one of our portfolio companies. And, in their case, we found the opportunity that they were going after really interesting, the whole idea of taking these, high potential Asian-made games to a global audience. And the second part is kind of looking at the team. Does it have the right composition to pursue that opportunity, what we call the, I guess, opportunity team fit? Again, using Potato Play as an example, sorry, Vincent, Vincent himself has that gaming experience. He's had experience working with developers in China. His co-founder Kingsley as well has had, product and game design experience. So when we look at that team, we felt confident that, hey, this was guys that could execute, right? And they could execute on that vision and that opportunity. So those core tenets kind of remain the same. And it doesn't change, no matter where you come from. I think in terms of the challenges of investing in companies overseas, that has been a little bit trickier since COVID has started. But like I said, we've always been operating remote and distributed. So, it's a lot more effort, I think, to go deeper in video calls, to have maybe longer sessions, to do like really thorough reference calls, to build trust. And it's both ways. It's, the founders themselves trusting us as an investor, and it's whether we trust them, right? And we have faith in their ability to kind of execute on the vision. So it takes a little bit more effort. It can take a little bit more time, but this is the new normal, right?
Yeah, you've launched into pandemic challenges. I think we're going to park that and come back to that because I've got a couple more questions on that to see how it affects your business.
Yeah.
But on 2 or 3 occasions here, you've been nice about Vincent and about his company. Maybe we should ask Vincent what Play Ventures are like as an investor. So Vincent, we've heard why Play Ventures have invested in your company, the key people, your methodology, the great content that you make, the approach that you're taking in looking global. But why would you accept funds from Play Ventures into your business? What's good about them, or bad? You can always suggest room for improvement if you want.
Now, I think Play Ventures has been a great help before and after investment. So even previously, before we Play Ventures invested in us, we were discussing our business model, and we had a different model when we started speaking. It was exciting when we started speaking, and it sort of turned not that great, seeing results and metrics. So when we discussed this, I discussed this with Henrik, and who is a founding partner at Play Ventures. He gave like honest feedback, and drawing from his own experiences, tells us, gives us some advice, and we took some of his advice according to our situation, and we managed to pivot into our current model, which he's convinced as well, and that's how the investment happened. And after that, it's really great, because I think a good investor who understands the business, especially at the seed or pre-seed round, it's really important, because firstly, it saves you all the trouble from like explaining the whole industry to the investor, and then secondly, instead of like being there as a student, they are here as a teacher to help you with the business, and they can really guide you along and fill up bits that you don't really you cannot cover well among our co-founders. And then I think also because of the Play Ventures being like a gaming focused fund, they have like lots of other game companies in the portfolios, and just that alone, it's precious because we could share ideas. We could we grow as a sort of a community rather than individually.
Oh, this sounds like a bit of a love-in, doesn't it? Everyone being nice to each other, isn't that? Isn't that a lovely thing to have? But actually, some really good guidance there, Vincent, on selecting a partner and the importance of having someone that you feel comfortable with, that understands your business and has knowledge. That's really good stuff. Thank you. Now, Felicia, you mentioned the pandemic. It probably gets mentioned in every virtual call. Inevitably, it's what's going on at the moment. We have to live with the conditions that we operate within. I'm quite interested in hearing a little bit more about your thoughts on sort of virtual events, because you've talked about the challenges of meeting companies. As an investor, I would have thought we have a phrase in the UK, you want to see the whites of the eyes of the person that you're doing a deal with. You really want to understand them and create a connection with them. What are your thoughts on virtual events and the ability to do business, particularly things like investment, in a time when you can't physically get to meet those people? How are you finding that?
Yeah, I think, first of all, I think everybody agrees with that, being able to see the whites of the eyes of the person that you're dealing with. That's great. But it's just not something that we have the privilege of doing anymore. In a typical time, part of the due diligence process for an investor to decide, okay, am I going to put this money into this company, would involve in-person meetings, right? Looking the person in the eye, shaking their hand, feeling their handshake, visiting the team, observing the dynamics. But that's just not possible. So we've just honestly had to work around it. Like I said, we do a lot more calls. We do a lot more reference checks, probably deeper reference checks and calls than we would normally have otherwise. It's just so that we can get a better feel of the person. With video calls, it might be, maybe 2 more calls than we would have done before, trying to really get a sense also of not just the individual co-founders, but the dynamics. There's a lot of things that you can pick up on still from the calls. And hopefully the day will come soon where we'll be able to travel a little bit and meet some of these people that we've invested in. But in the past year alone, since COVID, we've made 8 new investments. So that's perhaps slightly a little less than last year, but those investments are still happening. Time doesn't really stop for anybody, so we just gotta deal with it.
And is that investment in people that you already knew before the pandemic started? Do you feel it's a little bit more? We certainly hear from companies in the UK that investment is continuing of people that they have a working relationship already. They already have that understanding. How many of those 8 have been with people that you've already invested in previously? Or is it all new, or that you knew previously, perhaps?
Well, I think, out of the 8 new investments, maybe about 3 or 4 of them were people that we had conversations with before lockdown began. But I think the majority of them are not necessarily people that we've had the opportunity to meet with in person. So I think it is a fair split for us, but of course, I totally get, where people are coming from. It is more difficult if you don't already have some sort of pre-existing relationship with the investor. And, some of it is more of an uphill challenge if you don't have those connections. You either want to go and ask for somebody to make that warm introduction for you. If you're somebody that they don't know very well, there might be more questions, if you're a new team that's not very experienced in gaming, for example, and you don't have that portfolio of billion-dollar games to showcase, then, they might be asking to see things like, do you have an early playable that you can show, notwithstanding it's just stock art assets. It doesn't look very pretty, but can you ship? Can you deliver together, right? Can they see okay, this could be a fun experience to see where they're going? Do you have early retention metrics like day 1, day 3 that you can show to say hey, we are a team that can ship. We are a team that can deliver on this promise that everyone says we're going to be the next big thing, but hey, we can really do it. Or if you don't have a game that's far that is that far in, can you demonstrate kind of some early market numbers to show that, hey, we understand the unit economics, right? So can you show I've run, a UA campaign on Facebook and here's my click-through rates, the theme works out, people clearly like this theme. It's a low cost per install, so the revenue numbers are in my favor. all those things can help if you don't already have those connections.
It's interesting. So it's encouraged studios to sort of up their game in terms of understanding the metrics, which is perhaps a positive. If you're an investor, you want to feel comfortable with the people that you're working with. You want to be convinced that they understand their business model, and perhaps putting pressure on them to produce those numbers is a good outcome from the challenges that we're finding at the moment. I suppose the other way of getting Felicia interested in games is making a zombie game, isn't it? Don't you have a penchant for zombie games?
I do. I love zombie games. So if you have a zombie game, I will definitely try it. I have my phone is I've got an entire screen full of zombie games.
Zombie games with metrics. That's the way into your
zombie
heart.
games with metrics. Yeah, you got me.
We've published 2 zombie games so far.
Well, there we go. Now we understand the connection. Vincent, in terms of sort of business operations during pandemic, how have you found that? The working practices and how's your business been positively or adversely affected by the current situation we find ourselves in?
So it's definitely affected us in terms of because we have an office in Singapore and an office in China. So I'm the person who's supposed to travel to and fro, but now I'm in Singapore for almost a year. So that's definitely affected the team morale in China. But I think it's sort of got us more efficient. We are having online meetings, and rather than me being the bridge, now it feels like the team's one team, because since we're working from home anyway. So it actually is efficient in some ways than the other. I think the only big problem is as we are building the team, so new hires wouldn't get that office environment or atmosphere. So it's not too great for team building. So we try to have outings with social distancing, and to build up on that, or to make up for that.
It's amazing what some companies have done to try and keep that unity. I mean, that we're creative companies making games. Creative people really thrive from working with each other. So it has been a challenge for the games industry to keep that creativity going, which is really interesting. I've been fascinated by some of the things people have done. Just looking forward to the future. Vince, I'm going to come to you first on this. Tell us a bit about where's your company going? What are your sort of hopes and aspirations for the future? Let's end on some positive stuff.
So as a publisher, we want to help more developers gain international success. And for our near future, we want to release much more hits than now, and something along in the far future or a mid future, we want to even help Western publishers, Western developers publish their games in Asia or globally. So that's our plan and our hopes for the future.
And Felicia, how about you? What's your perspective on the future?
We're optimistic, definitely. So our first fund was 40 million, and we closed it in 2018, 2019. And actually, as we speak now, we're raising our second fund, and it's going to be bigger and, as they say, better. But the focus will still be on investing and helping early stage gaming startups as well as game services, get funded and become, the next big thing. So those are some of the things that we're working on. We're also working on other things related to diversity. We are very aware that there is inequitable representation of certain groups of people within gaming, and we are trying to be, a net positive on that front. So hopefully we'll be able to share more details about those specific initiatives. But that's definitely on the forefront of our thinking for the next year.
It'd be lovely to see some sort of global coordination of some of those activities as well. In the UK, we're running a diversity project called Raise the Game, which is amazing. Over 100 games companies signed up to it, making positive commitments on equality and diversity and inclusion going forward. But it would be really nice if that was a wider campaign, so something for us to look at. That's been fascinating. Thank you for your time today and your insight. I think we we made it somewhat more conversational than perhaps focusing purely on exports, but I think it's useful to broaden the picture and get a wider sense of what people are experiencing at the moment. So thank you very much for your time, and we'll make sure that some information is distributed about contact details so that people can follow up with you, particularly trying to learn a little bit more from you, from your expert knowledge. So thank you for your time, and keep in touch.
Thanks, you, Sam.
Hi there, I'm Richard Ledbetter, Managing Director of Digital Foundry with a YouTube channel catering to over 1 million subscribers, and I also double up as technology editor for Eurogamer.net. Started playing games probably in the late 1970s and started as a journalist in the games business in 1990. So yeah, 30 years covering games and technology. But it's safe to say that this is my driving passion in life, and I'm fortunate enough to have focused that into what is today a thriving business. So, gaming. It's a technology-led endeavour. New consoles are arriving from Microsoft and Sony that are based on the absolute latest technology from their mutual hardware partner, AMD, which is a leading light in the semiconductor business. Now, I'd say that over the years, there have been two distinct strands of gaming technology that are now coming together. On the one hand, we had PC, where you saw the very latest and greatest technological innovations, the cutting edge in processor technology, graphics rendering, and now even artificial intelligence, AI, machine learning. And for my money, this is the next big technological frontier, not just for gaming. Then there are the consoles, which back in the 90s aimed for a very different arcade-like experience, but have evolved over time to encompass the same cutting-edge graphics technology as PC. And when I talk about cutting edge, I mean it. The convergence in gaming technology that I'm discussing here, I'd say that it started during the Xbox 360, PlayStation 3 era, back in the mid-2000s. Big entertainment companies like Electronic Arts and Ubisoft brought Hollywood-level CG techniques into gaming, to the point where they actively recruited from the movie business, bringing in talent even from the biggest VFX companies, leading lights like Industrial Light and Magic. The kind of motion capture and facial animation technologies you saw in Lord of the Rings or Planet of the Apes, yeah, those techniques are now standard procedure in creating performances in AAA gaming for the likes of Uncharted, Red Dead Redemption, Assassin's Creed. But what's perhaps most exciting from my perspective is that gaming is now giving back to other entertainment mediums like movies and TV. So consider Disney Plus's hit series, The Mandalorian. It's using virtual set technology where, rather than taking film crews and talent to remote locations, a small team visits, films, and digitally samples those locations. Returning to the studio, those locations are then rendered on enormous surround screens, a virtual film stage, if you like. So yeah, no blue screen or green screen. Actors are physically acting on virtual sets, and if you've watched The Mandalorian, you really can't tell the difference. And to kind of get back to my main point, here's the thing. The underlying technology that makes this possible, it's Epic's Unreal Engine, remarkably the same software, the same technological foundation behind the biggest game in the world right now, Fortnite. Again, convergence, massively exciting stuff. And with the next generation of gaming, we see more integration between various entertainment media. So yeah, Epic's new Unreal Engine 5 technology essentially promises unlimited levels of detail using production assets of Hollywood quality to produce the richest and most immersive gaming worlds yet. Beyond that, the technology I'm most excited about looking forward would be, as I mentioned earlier, artificial intelligence, AI, machine learning. Now, when you use Google to search for an image, AI is used to turn your words into pictures. When Facebook identifies the people in your uploaded photos, that's AI. Even the latest smartphones contain AI acceleration hardware. Now, there's going to come a point where the car you drive will be handled by an AI neural network. It's already happening to a certain extent with Tesla's autopilot. And in gaming, we've only really just started to scratch the surface here. But here's one example. We now have 4K TV screens with 8 million pixels. There are even 8K screens now, 33 million pixels there. That's just too much for a graphics processor to cope with in many scenarios. So AI is being used to take a less detailed image that requires less graphics power, then to blow that image up to produce a convincing 4K presentation. The latest 8K displays? Well, 8K screens, they ship with AI processors that take HD and 4K images and scale them up nicely to this new extreme resolution. And gaming will follow suit shortly. So that's just one aspect of technology that I'm hugely excited about. And just this concept that there's always something new and exciting just around the corner. That's why 30 years later I'm still in the game. Technological innovation is at the heart of gaming, and I love to tell my followers about something new and genuinely exciting that could revolutionize the games we play. But more than that, as we've seen, the implications for these innovations, they're far more wide-reaching. Gaming is my focus, it always will be, but the groundbreaking innovations in my business seem to have a habit of improving and even revolutionizing the media we consume from all aspects of entertainment. And well, I can't wait to see what happens next.
Hey everybody, thanks for joining us. I'm Matt Colclough, Esports Lead here at Barclays Games. I'm joined today with John Tilsbury, Executive Director of NSE National Student Esports. Hey John, thanks for joining us.
Hi Matt, yeah, it's great to chat.
Awesome. So for everybody watching out there, can you give us a bit about yourself, your history, and also what NSE is all about?
Yep, so I'm Managing Director of NSE. We're an organisation that work with higher education students across the country to facilitate inter-university esports competitions, which is a huge area of entertainment for students now. Our competition has, I think this year, almost 900 teams, which makes it bigger than most university sports, even before everything that was going on at the moment. So it's a really big deal, and it's an area that's growing really quickly. We work with the university, so we work with British universities and colleges sport, the governing body for university sport, to actually deliver that program for students. And then prior to NSE, I actually worked with a couple of organizations like Game Digital to look at grassroots esports strategy for the UK. So my background is very much working with amateur esports players who might aspire to become professionals or are simply there to have a good time.
Amazing. So you mentioned the state of the world as it is at the moment, and how it's affected university students. How has that specifically affected the esports communities in the university world?
Yeah, it's been really interesting. So we speculated that obviously with everyone being locked down, gaming would increase. And that's definitely something that the industry's seen. A lot of games doing record player numbers over the lockdown period. Within universities, it's affected it in a really interesting way. So the players that we have and the students that were engaging with us before are now engaging with us more than ever before. And our community has grown quite substantially over the period. But going into the new academic year, what we're finding is that perhaps we don't have as many new players as we would have liked. And I think that's because the lockdown has actually disrupted a lot of the ways in which students meet each other when they first arrive at university. So one of our primary ways of recruiting students for our esports league, for our esports competition, is working with the student gaming societies, which are often some of the largest societies on campus, to provide them with tools to promote the competition and attract members for their society. And actually, without having those freshers fairs, it's been really difficult for those societies to reach new students. So it raises the question of, how effectively students are going to be able to integrate with their university communities when they're actually not, a lot of them aren't on campus this year. But largely speaking, I think it's been, gaming has been a really popular way for students to actually network and socialize when a lot of their normal channels have been disrupted.
Amazing. Yeah, no, that's really interesting. So when we talk about university esports and why students should be involved, what are the benefits? Obviously, there's a lot around games in general that people kind of sometimes aren't quite sure why people should be gaming. I think is a bit of a frivolous, just a hobby, not that much value to it. What would you tell people that the real value is to be involved in this this space?
I think the thing that people forget about esports and competitive gaming specifically is that it's very social. Most popular esports games, you'll be competing as part of a team. There aren't many games where you compete on your own. And definitely for me as a player, with a background as a player, for me it was the social piece that kept me playing. And I think that's a key motivator for getting involved in competitions and getting involved in esports. So it can be a social tool. But when you look at the student space specifically, I think one of the things that's really exciting is the way in which it allows students to develop skills. Now, we often say to people, oh, games are a really good way of, developing soft skills, developing team working skills, etc., etc. And when you're talking about what happens inside the game, I think for a lot of people, whilst it's true, it's a hard sell. We talk to employers all the time. That's one of the big things that we do, is to say to them, we've got these amazing students coming out of the university esports space. Can we, fast track them through one of your employment programs? And if we talk about games as a way of upskilling them, it's true, but it's a hard sell. What's really interesting is the way in which the students band together to put in place the infrastructure that their community needs to grow. Like I said earlier, the student gaming societies and esports societies are often the biggest societies on campus, but they receive relatively little support from the university compared with, say, the sports teams, because they're so new and it's a relatively quite a poorly understood space at the moment. So a lot of the stuff they're doing off their own back. We have students in York, for example, that for years and years and years have been organizing a huge sort of local area network gaming event. So they'll book out a sports hall and they'll market and network and do the power infrastructure for this big gaming event. They're putting in place all sorts of skills with very little support from the relatively little support from the university. And I think that's really impressive. And I think it's a great reason for people to actually get involved in the space. Students are getting involved with university esports and they're finding themselves more employable and more useful to employers as a result of it. So yes, that absolutely people that play games, I think are developing these soft skills that are useful. Within the student space specifically, though, there's so much more to it.
Oh, amazing. That's really great to hear. On Tuesday in a US session, we spoke to Dignitas, and one of the key points that came up was gender diversity in the professional setting for esports. What is NSC doing to tackle this in grassroots in the UK?
Yeah, that's a great question, and it's something that's really important to us. There's this huge audience out there that we're not reaching yet, and the esports community as a whole isn't reaching yet. And I think one of the things that we found from looking at the different areas in which women engage with what we do, we have relatively few female players within our competition. But actually, when we look at the society leadership and the students that run that kind of esports, run their on-campus esports communities, actually that's where women over-index. So what we've done is to design a number of projects, including one we called Future Gen, where we deliver content and training specifically, and a spotlight, I guess, specifically for leaders within the student esports space. And what that's allowed us to do is to create these strong female role models for incoming students and actually show them that this is a space that's open to all. One of the things we've also looked at, and others are doing, are kind of women's competitions to create a safe space for women to play. Our view on that at the moment is that we want to try and avoid that as a strategy. I think that's because one of the really positive things about esports is that it's a level playing field for all. And so we want to try and encourage that rather than creating two separate competitions. And even with a mixed competition and a women's competition, you're almost incentivizing participation in one over the other. So that's something that we're keen to avoid. One of the things that's been really exciting for us is that whilst admittedly the percentage of women playing in the competition is relatively low, every year we have had a mixed team that's won one of our sort of premier competitions. So that's everything's definitely moving in the right direction.
Amazing. That's really, really good to hear. So finally, later on today, we have the Invitational being hosted by yourselves. Can you just give us a little bit of a lowdown? Who's going to be involved and what people can expect to watch?
Yeah, what we have are two show matches, Kent versus Lincoln in League of Legends, and that's a really one of the most popular esports games at the moment. So it's relatively hard to actually read it if you're not familiar with the game, but it is the sort of the premier esports title. It's definitely worth watching and seeing the kind of complexity of the game, because that's what keeps people playing. That's what keeps people watching. It's a really, really deep strategic game. Can be really exciting to watch. And then we also have a Rocket League game. So Rocket League, again, a really popular esport, not quite as big as League of Legends, but the difference is that Rocket League is much easier to read. So it's basically football with cars. Simple as that. So very easy to watch and easy to understand what's going on. And I think that's Salford and Bournemouth. So two of our kind of bigger universities in the NSE network that we'll be playing against each other in that.
Amazing. And where can we watch it?
And you can watch it on the NSE Twitch channel. So it's twitch.tv/NSE_GG. I'm sure you'll be able to find a link somewhere.
Amazing. And that starts at 1 o'clock today. So thanks everybody for joining us, and John especially, thanks for joining us today.
Cheers, Matt.
And I look forward to kind of hearing more about how the British University Esports Championship progresses this year.
Games are a big part of my life. With my disability, it was one of the only things I could do for enjoyment. So gaming has really opened up that door for me, and it helps connect you to other people in this world.
I can't do a lot by myself, but I can play video games on my own, which gives me a good sense of independence and achievement.
It's just a release from the monotony of the day. If you're not feeling well or you're uncomfortable, it takes your mind off it and gives me something to look forward to.
As a parent, it's made so much difference to Chase being able to access video games. It creates a level playing field. He can do an activity that he wouldn't be able to do in normal day-to-day life. But even better, with gaming, he can play alongside someone.
Special Effect are bringing families and friends closer together through video games. The setups we create are personalised, so people can play to the very best of their abilities. And this opens the door to inclusion and independence, confidence and creativity. Help us level the playing field and create many more magical gaming moments.
Hello, my name is Krista Edmonds. I work for Group Innovation and I'm based in the United States. I hope you enjoyed today's event, and thank you to all our guests for taking part. If you'd like to be connected to us or to any of the speakers or the showcase businesses, then please email us at games@barclays.com. You can also contact us via Twitter or LinkedIn using the moniker @BarclaysGames. As a reminder, we have our Israel-focused event taking place tomorrow. Search games.barclays and click on the link on the homepage to register for the event. Our esports tournament with our partners National Students Esports takes place later today at 9 p.m. Hong Kong time and 1 p.m. GMT on Twitch. And you can access that via twitch.tv/NSE_GG. Many thanks for tuning in, and we hope to see you tomorrow.
Like you'll ever get paid to play video games, they said. You've gone on to become players, creators, fans, all in one huge and growing community. Video games bring us closer, even when we're apart, and Barclays has seen this. We've been partnering with the likes of Yuki, Women in Games, Tiger, and Game Republic. We know that gaming's many faces can truly make a positive impact. We're there with you, whether you're making the next great game or just looking forward to playing it. Squad up, we're Barclays.